This time we look at a model of a crane which is less common than we usually see, and it's a truck crane. The blue and white box tells you it's a Tadano, and it is the GT-1200XL-2 truck crane. Apart from the branding, the box is fairly plain, but if we go to the underneath we see that this is an IMC model, and for some reason the model number shown here is different from that advertised by IMC.
Let's weigh it up.
We go straight to the weighbridge with the box, and it's 3 pounds 4 ounces, which is nearly 1.5 kilograms. With that said, we can get on and open the box and see what is inside. We start off with a small manual, which we'll look at in a moment. And it's always nice when the trays are secured by clips rather than tape. If we lift the lid, the parts are wrapped in soft paper. The instruction manual is very good. It starts with both a packing diagram and a full list of parts, and it also shows the included tools. What follows is a description of all the various modes that the model can have, and overall it's a very worthwhile manual. One of the plus points of the model is the very detailed counterweight, and it consists of a number of parts. So you can pretty much replicate any poses that you want. For transport, we need to separate out the lowest part of the counterweight, and that includes the tray. And we can place that on the carrier deck. And there are a couple of tabs on the deck which locates it in the right position. Next we can carry the optional fly jib, and that rests on a jib support on the boom, and we can interlock the connections at the boom head. And you need to do that in order to keep the jib in position. And to make sure it's properly secure, you can use a couple of steel pins. There appears to be a holder for the single line hook block on the carrier deck, but in truth it's not an easy fit, although you can kind of squeeze it into position. The winches are operated by a key, and if you're not using the winches, you can add in the winch motors, and they just press into position.
Let's weigh it up again.
With the model configured for transport, it weighs 2 pounds 1 ounces, what is 945 grams. Starting underneath, and there is a fifth outrigger underneath the cab, and the detailing of the truck chassis is detailed as you would expect from IMC models. The transmission runs to the rear 2 axles, and there are different tyres, front and back. The carrier cab is fairly simple. There's a beacon light on the roof, and windscreen wipers. The lights are detailed, but there's no number plate because this is a generic model, and as you can see, you can tie the hook on for transport. There are 2 steps up into the cab, and there is a large graphic applied. The door handle is nicely highlighted. The model does have many small graphics applied, and these always give a model a realistic appearance. The wheels are reasonably detailed. As we go towards the back, you can see there are many more small graphics, and the rear wheels are typical of a truck. The crane cab has got metal grab rails, and again there's more small graphics to give an authentic look. That continues over to the crane body, and there the graphics break up an otherwise simple appearance. A nice touch inside the cab are the graphics on the computer screen. At the back the lights are painted, and there's also a towing hitch. You can also see that the outrigger pads can be fully retracted. The boom has got some detail in the casting, and there's a Tadano graphic. And there are also graphics for an angle indicator, but there's no pointer. On the other side we see the fly jib, and the lattice work does seem really quite thick for the scale. It is all metal. The outrigger pistons have visible screw threads, which is a bit of a dated detail, but the telescopic sections have realistically thin walls, with Tadano printed on the top section. Small rope guides are modelled, but they're not functional, so they don't assist the smooth running of the rope. Starting underneath, and the rear wheels spin freely, and at the front we have notched steering. The steering axles are not linked, but you can achieve a very good angle. Out on the cranes etc. interstate, and the model rolls very smoothly, and with a swift setting of the steering we can drive ourselves around the bend. This is a truck crane, and it benefits from an outrigger under the cab, and that works on the model in the usual way by unscrewing, and the piston has a long range of travel. The outrigger beams are metal and two-stage, and small metal spreader plates are included with the model. The deck has 5 different ladders which can be rotated and lowered, and with all the outriggers down the model can be held wheels free, although some flexibility in the model tolerances means the outrigger beams are not completely straight. The boom raises very easily because it's got a metal jacket, and you lock the position by tightening a screw in the usual way. But the key is delicate, so don't be tempted to over-tighten. Out of the box, the model is reeved with a 3-sheave hook, and also included is a single sheave hook. So we'll go ahead and swap out. And to do that we need giant scissors to come along and cut the rope. And here is the single sheave hook in place. To attach the counterweight, you offer it up from underneath, and you don't need to use all of the plates if you don't want. Once it's located properly, you insert a steel pin on each side to lock it. And if you want to go for the heavier lift, you have cheek weights which can be dropped in on each side. With the fly jib in a travelling position, we do come to a weakness of the model, and that is that you can't extend the boom and leave the fly jib in place in a transport position. And that's because there's nothing for it to clip onto, and that's a shame. Having said that, extending the boom is easy in the usual way, and it's best to have a small load on the hook whilst you're doing it. There are locking positions approximately at 50 and 100%. Of course you can rotate the crane, but it was really quite sticky on the review model, but maybe that would ease up with a few turns. Another feature is the tilting cab, and it holds the pose well. Another display option is with the fly jib fitted, and that gives you a chance to use a single line hook block, although the chains are not included. Operating the winches is done in the usual way, and the drums have a positive brake action. The fly jib is bifold, but you can't really use it unfolded. There is a sheave at the end, but the route for the rope to get to it is not properly formed. There is another display option you have, and that is to add the small single drop extension which pins on to the boom head.
Time for a dim check.
To the top of the fully extended boom, it is about 41 inches or 104 centimetres, and with the fly jib it's about 54 inches or 138 centimetres. It is good to see a model of this type of truck crane, which is usually used in North America. There is some very nice detailing in terms of the many small graphics and the fully sectional counterweight, but other parts like the fly jib are not to the same standard. However, most of the functionality is very good, and that gives you plenty of display options. Overall, it's good enough to be rated as very good.